And my personal thought is, can't really hear Hax. Hey guys, sorry, we're setting up through OBS. Any technical issues is just that. Let me know if right now you guys can hear me better.
You do need the pop out chat.
No, I'm able to get it through my side.
Okay, yeah. I apologize, everybody. We're getting set up, but let's just say really quick. Wow, Grace equals Emily just confirmed. Not only does that not happen on YouTube, the last show you would think that would ever confirm a theory in under a week would be to even confirm anything would be Westworld. So even though this OBS is stressing me out pretty severely right now, I'm not gonna lie. The satisfaction I have in the bruising on my back, even though I wasn't the only one, a lot of us thought it, of Grace equaling Emily being confirmed, it is fantastic, and it just shows you the show. They're like, they think we're not gonna let them know. We'll let them know. And I thought they were putting in the pre-show scenes, like they were just feeding fueling the fire. I'm like, ooh, I bet they slipped that in. And then no, they were like, yeah, here you guys go. We got our cake. We got to eat it too.
Yep.
So
I love it. So let's see. Let me go ahead and pull up my Amazon here so I can go through the episode. Starting off, we come to. Let's see.
We start
Delos in a incubation pod. Best way to describe it.
Yes.
Really, I mean, the importance of this and what we're seeing, right, is his journey to becoming a host human hybrid. This immortality theme. This, what the corporate research group is doing. And I mean, me and my wife are legitimately jumping up and down, like, oh my god, I can't believe we're seeing what we're seeing. And so that was amazing. But what's so incredibly crazy about it is that, and I overlooked this entirely, is that they don't know how to achieve consciousness, right? And it gives a whole new meaning to what William's purpose of the park was, to him trying to find something real, to him being there. It really paints the picture of he saw a realness in Dolores, and then this entire time has been trying to recreate that, with James
for a
Delos.
noble reason, actually.
Yes, it's so insane. I mean, the entire narrative of that character, the entire narrative of what he's gone through changes with this episode.
Still a bastard to a point.
I think that the fact that we didn't see Dolores, Maeve, or any of like the old favorites, but we will see them probably in the next episode under a completely different light. Because what I was saying that was a very pessimistic and dark episode was the fact that seeing how everything is so scripted, and we were starting to love the hosts and see them nearly as humans, but there was something there that stopped us and kept on reminding us, no, every single thing is scripted from beginning to end. Remember even Hector, when was it in the last episode, when he's saying about Isabella and the line is scripted. And that's what made me so sad. And I think that when we'll see Dolores next, when we'll see Maeve next, we'll just keep on thinking that nearly everything they say is just programmed. It just hit me so strong when I saw that.
Well, let's be clear, though. I mean, they have not been able to actually achieve transferring consciousness. Now, the hosts being sentient or being fully conscious, actually, I don't think is affected whatsoever. I think that they just don't know how to transfer it because I don't think this takes away from the validity of the host's awakening whatsoever. It's just the point of you can't put a human brain into the host body yet, or at least with James Delos's case. They don't affect each other.
Yeah, well, I mean, yes, that's very true, because it's different. It is different groups competing toward the same goal, right? It was Ford in his isolation trying to achieve this, trying to redeem what his colleague Arnold was able, or what he thought he was able to do, and then essentially now this other competing group is in the park. I believe that what we saw, that little construct, was in the park, and they're trying to also achieve consciousness, but I mean, they're not working together. Their goals are definitely not the same.
Yeah, I mean, the whole process of creating immortality and actually, the hosts becoming sentient beings are two separate cases altogether, because they're trying to transfer, like he says, we're looking for fidelity. That means, like they're looking to clarify that he is in line, he is authentic. So obviously that's working, but there's those, I forget, I think they say a plateau, cognitive plateau maybe, is the issue. So he keeps getting a little bit better. We see the issues that are similar. He's having issues that hosts have. We see Bernard having the shaking, but we also see that present in James Delos. So we see the transformation. But yeah, I don't think that that was meant to imply whatsoever that we should now look at the host sentience as any less. I don't think it affects it, in my opinion at least, which is only an opinion, of course. It has no effect on it whatsoever.
But it is a framing device, right? So it is a framing device in the sense that not a lot of people know what consciousness is. I mean, even to clarify what consciousness is in the real world is a task, but making these hosts, and if you implant a mapped human brain into a host body, it's still, the key is suffering, right? The key is suffering and time. Ford states this himself. So that's why over time Delos got better, right? He was able to go for 7 days at first and then 35 days. I think that's essentially what it is, and it speaks to the ignorance of who knows about it. I believe that Maeve is probably the most qualified to get a host to this conscious state, but again, just a framing device for who knows how this works.
Absolutely. And I love hearing that, because I mean, I think you probably know this has been my opinion. Why do you think I say I hate the word sentience? I hate using it because we have based what deserves to be what I guess the base term would be personhood, deserves personhood, would be the legal term. They are entitled to rights. They're entitled to, being treated with some humanity, by our attributes. So we decided the term. We of course have a big bias. We base it off all of our attributes, everything. That's what makes you sentient. So you got to be like us. This isn't a story about you have to be like us. That's why when you go into this park and you act evil and you inflict pain on anything that can feel pain or anything like that, that you by default lose your humanity, because humanity is loving and caring. Maeve by default is showing her humanity by loving her daughter. But again, humanity is another word that is framed by us, built by us and based off of our feelings. So yeah, absolutely. I love what you're saying. And I'm happy maybe more people will start having this conversation, because this is the one I think we should be having.
Yeah. So the next thing that it comes to is Lawrence and Men in Black riding, and they come across the workers laying new railroad track. What did you guys think of this scene? Was this purely scripted by like a narrative of Ford's? I mean, surely they can't be building anything useful. You know what I mean? Like that railroad would never support anything.
No, I have no idea what all of that was about, and I think Men in Black also says that it's leading in the wrong direction. That's what he says, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
He said it should lead. I can't remember if he says north or west, but it should lead another way.
Yeah.
They're heading west. We should head north, I think.
Do you think that maybe that's like just trying to show, like the director's trying to show us more of the outskirts of the park? Because it's established that the Sweetwater is the gentle breeze. You walk through, everything's fine, and then as you go out, everything starts getting more intense. Do you think that that's just simply meant to show us a more intense outskirts of the park, or anything else?
Go ahead, Debbie.
No, as I was saying, I don't have an idea formed yet about this. I was just as surprised about it. But yes, I agree with you that every time we see something which is further and further away from what we used to see in the first episodes last year, like, the more we move away from that, the more wild everything seems to become. But that's about it for now. That's the only thing.
Yeah, I don't think there's really too much to draw from that scene. I think maybe it was just more of a creative thing. So the next one we come to is Bernard actually being dropped off by Clementine. Justin, do you want to speak about that?
Yeah, I do want to add one thing to the train tracks thing. I mean, they're paving the road with dead people, essentially, dead hosts. I don't know if it was clarified if they're hosts or human. Again, what makes you a host or human is the bigger question at hand. But yeah, I think it shows that they are, they're on their journey, but they're not going the right way. I think it's kind of more of a metaphor for that. Now, Clementine dropping Bernard off with Elsie, because first off, yes, I mean, there's so many big reveals here that I don't think we even know what to do with them. We got Elsie back, not with Ghost Nation. Evidently had some, Cliff bars, protein bars, and, water just chained up in a cave, where we have Plato's allegory of a cave metaphor with that as well. So Clementine seems to be, crazy ghost Clementine seems to have an agenda that would lead me to believe that is in line with what Ford wanted. That's all I can take from that. Now, Elsie not being with Ghost Nation, very interesting, very, very unique that it was Elsie to be the first person to, in this season at least, to find out that Bernard is a host, and she didn't even stutter. I mean, for I know it's a fake show, people, but let's give her some props.
She wasn't surprised.
Well, she was, but you know what I mean. She wasn't even put back. It was like so. It shows a level, and it was hinted to, allured to a little bit in season 1 with her, seeing them as more. But it did show, that she's not no ignorant woman. That she's open, even when he strangled her. But she doesn't look at him in any other way other than, actually, hey, I'm just still pissed at you for strangling me. She accepts it right away. I mean, that's a big reveal. Like, she's not even aware this could happen, and then she's like, "Oh, you're a host," but then she's like, "You still strangled me, you bastard." So if he was having this coming out party with any character this season, I guess Elsie was the one. And with her detective skills, to take her to the to the secret lab. Now, I'm under the influence that was not the lab that we saw him in with Charlotte.
Nope,
what do you think, Hex?
Different sector entirely.
Because they said 22, I believe.
Yeah, so that was 22. I believe the other was 14.
Yeah,
And essentially, just the importance of that is that there's these outposts that are established. So it's very interesting that we saw James Delos at one of these outposts. I still firmly believe that the Valley Beyond is this project, right? So maybe it's not just James Delos in this in this Valley Beyond. It is potentially just a cluster of people trying to obtain consciousness in this same kind of way. Because he mentions that not everyone is meant to live forever, or not everybody is meant to live forever. I do think that there's more. We know that there's Sector 14. We know that there's Sector 22. If James Delos being the high priority case that he would be, then it would make sense for him to have an isolated staff and an isolated container that they would work out of in secrecy.
And I guess we did see at the end what happened to the employees of at least one specific. I would have to assume this facility. It was almost oh man, I don't want to relate it to Suicide Squad, but a Suicide Squad-esque moment where they terminated the staff in themselves. So I mean, I feel like, okay, first off, people, we're trying to get organized here and get our thoughts right, because we had to do the OBS thing. Another thing is, I was planning on talking a lot about all the hints of Grace, and then they just give us the bombshell, but we should still talk about the correlation. Like right away we saw, of course, in the pre-show, what previously happened. We see the mention of his daughter, and then we see Grace, or Emily, we know she's Emily now, sit down with Stubbs, and she says, "I'm not looking to get out." Just like in season 1, MIB says, "This time I'm not leaving." He mentions his daughter to Lawrence. He sits down and asks at the table, when he's with Lawrence, he asks where everybody is at. Similar. I saw a duality there with Grace, immediately noticing we're seeing the father like daughter, daughter like father, daughter like father, thing going on. Like, I don't know if I'm making too much of a connection of that, but there's definitely foreshadowing it. I'm like, oh man, I mean, I was gonna claim victory with just that. And then they just handed it to us. So maybe
Yeah,
in a
yeah.
way they're stripping us of some joy, but it is very interesting. And he looked very happy to see her, but he did also mention that she might not mind seeing him get shot down, which was something I proposed could be, a aspect if it did turn out to be correct, which it is. But now what is her game?
Yeah, I thought I thought the way that they ended, right, and I feel like we're jumping to the end of the episode, and literally, but the way that they kind of greeted each other wasn't at all what I expected. The kind of backstory that we got to that point was just I don't know, relationship in shambles, everyone hating each other, and then they just happen to come across each other and hey Dad, what's up, man? I don't know.
Yeah. So if we want to go back to where we were at, I guess let's talk about what it means that James Delos was still alive and they're still performing this task. So if he obviously, I mean, because obviously they haven't solved it. We can confirm that unless the MIB just went full dick mode and they did solve it and you just left him in there to suffer in his madness. But so they're still scanning though cortexes and they're still performing this replication to a point of at least people's DNA and whatnot. So, and he says himself that he created somebody. So what are they still doing? Are they still trying to crack it? Or are they finding a different use for it? Is it? I mean, because then we're just left with some of the less spectacular answers, which is data mining. Which yes, that's very useful. But come on, it's Westworld. I mean, they're just not getting an edge on the market here. They're talking about creating a whole different humanity and questioning humanity. What do you guys think?
When William was walking away, he kind of said, when he said just to leave him here, and it would be interesting to observe how his mind would degenerate over the course of the days. It seemed nearly, how would you say it, like as a degrading comment towards him. But then when, like, just to leave him suffer. But then I also, when we saw that he was still there, I think that it would actually, like, realistically been scientifically interesting to see what would have happened. I mean, burning him down would not prove anything, would not help anything. So, although it's a very evil thing to do, seeing how his mind would have progressed or degraded over the course of time probably would help them.
Well, they did have 35 years of seeing this, though.
That's true.
But it is true. I mean, it's still, it's not advantageous for the case study. And obviously, we do know that Ford was also aware of this because he said, Ford sent me here. We see him capturing his reveries, too. That was something that was interesting to me. We're getting a very clear look. Because, again, I think we need to remember that the hosts don't experience memory like we do, like to trace decay and all that. Like we have a very I don't want to call it memory. We have a way of looking at things in our own way. They see things for what they actually were in every way, whether that's a good thing or bad thing, it's a debate. But he was sent there by Ford. So for the question of Ford knowing about this, we all kind of figured he knew about it, but he was also partaking in it.
Wait, he does address that Ford sent him there?
Yes, he said Ford sent me here to copy someone.
Okay.
So
I think I might have missed that, yeah.
And the question is who?
And I know what do you guys think in the chat? Is everybody just going to say Ford right away? I mean,
I'm sorry. I know what you're talking about. I thought you were referring to their conversation with James Delos. I'm not sure.
The obvious answer would be Ford, but then in Westworld, is anything obvious?
I just can't subscribe to it being Ford. Actually, Arnold, Chris Cole, you bring up Arnold there. Arnold might be an interesting concept. They were. Oh my gosh, it's Arnold. It's got to be Arnold. Just think about it. So what they were doing is trying to get James Delos' human mind into a Ford. I'm sorry, not a Ford. A host body, but they couldn't do it. They didn't understand what Ford knew about how the bicameral mind achieves this consciousness. But now we live in an existence where his best friend figured it out, but they needed more time. So he keeps Bernard in a way to be this token back to Arnold, and then maybe they put I don't know. maybe it's
I
not.
know it
because
makes sense.
essentially-
He sent
yeah.
them there to get him. And Ford is sending the Man in Black on this journey. But this journey, maybe Ford is privy to the information of how to actually complete the process without the person going into madness.
But what's the point of it though? Because Bernard already exists, right? Because if they do that, if they take that route as a show, then it kind of lessens the fact that, it's really well, because they developed the entire thing about consciousness, right? And how there is no defining line. It's never a black and white answer. It is exactly what it is. It's you. It's existing. So if they decide that now these human host hybrids are better and that Arnold would be recreated, are we just going to see Arnold and Bernard having weird conversations, or what does that play as a narrative? So maybe it's not Arnold, but that is very, very interesting.
Yeah.
It is.
Remember, and thank you so much, Carrie, for the super chat right there. And who do you think Ford and Bernard are making a copy of? That's what we're trying to figure it out. And yeah, we are doing this is before the dust settles, everybody. And we are, coming to conclusions that we are coming to the conclusion and within 3 seconds are probably not correct. So yeah, you are seeing the process. Who do you think? Best bet there, Debbie?
The immediate was Ford, but then at the same time, is anything obvious in Westworld? I really don't know. Now when we were speaking about Bernard and Arnold, it kind of makes sense, but it doesn't. And then we were saying about the Man in Black being sent there, and I've been kind of losing track of all the Man in Black narrative. Like, he keeps on saying that he's on this game and he's going to play it all the way to the end. So is he going to? Like, I have a lot of questions about that. I'm sort of losing track there.
Oh, that's okay. So I can kind of pick this up. So essentially, the reason that I don't think it can be Ford is it doesn't do much for the narrative. It lessens the blow of his season finale. This big godlike figure coming back to experience life as just another host. I don't know. I mean, it's not like we're gonna see Anthony Hopkins, kicking ass of humans, right?
And they have confirmed that he won't be back, and it takes away from his whole sacrifice. He had to let Dolores essentially commit original sin, without making her pull the trigger, and he also had to be hands off because he can't control something and then have them be free, because they're not free. They're being controlled.
What do you guys think of the idea that William, younger version of William, is a host?
When we were saying of somebody that had been copied like this, like Delos, I did for a second think of William.
Yeah.
I did think of him too.
Because I'm looking. Again, me and my wife were sitting watching the television or the show, and he goes, "I've been coming back here for X amount of days," or no, not when he says that. He was old version then, but he essentially, just like the repetitive process. I was like, who is going to come back to the middle of this location over and over again to get this? But they kind of explain it. It's theoretically possible to fit 149 visits into 35 or I don't know, like 25 years. So maybe it's that. I don't know though.
Well, let's look at the progression of time too on this project. Okay, so we do see that people are accepting death for sure, because not only, William is aging, also the person, I don't know what to call them, secretary or not, the person that is, flashing in the James Delos to let him know that William is there, changes. We go from the woman to the man. So we see people are accepting death. People are dying. Ford chooses to die. Whether or not we want to believe that's just his personal choice or not, we don't know, people, if this information, I guess that's the big question to ask, if they have fixed the issues, and for some reason James Delos was just never, recouped, and he was left in there out of maybe spite by William. I don't see that. I don't, especially now, because we have to look at the Man in Black in a whole new light. Hax was saying at the very beginning. I don't even know if we were technically live at that point. We'd been talking for like 20 minutes when we didn't know we were live. So again, this is usually we're more organized, we promise. But it's everything that the Man in Black was going there and doing now. Now, we still can't constitute everything. We can't say that he's the best guy in the world, but it puts a whole new meaning to it. He was struggling as hard as he could, not to recreate, like I've been saying, he wanted to recreate this situation with Dolores so much, and he felt really alive then, which he did. And he wanted that so bad that he wanted to break down every construct that was in the way of that being his reality. So that was his goal. That is selfish. But in a way, what he was doing is far more selfless than selfish. He was looking to get this man that he watched go mad. The best he was doing was 33 days over 30 some years, of being coherent. A man that was going insane. His father-in-law, the man that put him in his position. So we have to reevaluate everything about what we know about the Man in Black, what Ford would know about the Man in Black, because Ford also, because that's kind of always confusing to me as well, is that he never seemed to he was lukewarm with him. I would say it's probably an understatement, but he was never really angry with him. And I was always wondering, like, is he just dicking him around and he thinks he's foolish, because they had that conversation in season 1 where he goes, if you want to know the moral of the story, you could simply just ask. But it's so much deeper now. So is Ford truly helping the Man in Black achieve something of worth? We have to believe that he is. Again, and we're not justifying everything that happened in season 1, but everything has changed now. Everything has changed. And I don't think immortality is on the table yet. I'll go ahead and make that prediction, and I'll pass it on to you guys. This episode indicates to me that they have not yet got there, but they have gotten somewhere where they felt they needed to destroy the evidence of getting there, with the scene where we see the Jerome hosts, kill the humans and then kill themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, that was more of Bernard. I don't think that they're trying to. I mean, they were still actively in the process of obtaining this individual thought. They're able to map a human brain to put it into a host, but then they address that it doesn't really matter. At some point, it's all just code. Becoming able to process your own thought is the key there.
Yeah, Joanna just gave a super chat. Thought Pain would bring Delos around like Maeve. Yes, so and that was always the thought. Thank you again, Joanna. That was always the thought behind this, is that, and I always didn't like this method, because the idea behind that is that joy can be ignored. That as humans we could have the restraint in the whatever you would call it, probably the capability of ignoring all joy in our life, but pain is something that you just have to acknowledge, both of internal and external manner. So that was the only thing that made you real. So yeah, I mean, like, but again, humanity is all about caring and loving. So Maeve, on her journey to find her daughter, is showing humanity right there. That it's not about how her daughter and her relationship was predetermined or all that, because the same arguments could be had for humans and the amount of predetermination in our own lives. So that's the bigger argument, or not argument, conversation to have. But we don't know what they're trying to achieve and what the Man in Black could possibly still be trying to achieve. We'd have to assume, I guess, it's still immortality, because he kept him around, and I don't think he's going to be too happy to find out he went up in flames.
Hey, real quick, I do agree. King West videos, as the stream is now being recorded and people will be able to look at the chat as it happens. I just want to stress, man, we're not like pretending to be professionals or we're having a conversation about a show we deeply enjoy. If you want to post your own theories in the chat and we can analyze them, or if you even want to hop on the show with us, you are welcome to jump in the Discord. Honestly, brother, I mean, it's really not that big of a deal, and we love you nonetheless, even if you don't like our content. But yeah, again, if you do have a theory and you want to stress that to us, or you want our take on it, or if you don't want our take on it, then you don't have to be here, man. But much love, brother.
Yeah, pay to see model. we answer everybody's questions. And if you want to see the financial statement for this segment, you go ahead. I'll put the big 0 there on here. But yeah, buddy, if you want to take off, why don't you go ahead and take off?
But yeah,
Yeah.
moving on. Ultimately, the big takeaway from the LC and Bernard team up is that I was pretty hyped. Honestly, I was so excited that they kind of moved on to, I don't know, just there wasn't resentment or any craziness about the previous lives. It was just, I'm sorry that I killed or I abducted you forcefully, but that wasn't me. Someone was controlling me, and oh yeah, he's also dead. So take everything that I'm saying at face value, but now let's also be teammates.
I've
I mean,
always loved Elsie.
I love her, dude. Yeah.
She's perfect in this world because she just sees beyond all of that. Just how she could, obviously with anger, but she accepted the whole situation. Like she didn't just run off from Bernard. So I love that. I love the teammates from like one of the favorite couples, not couples, like screen couple thing, came back. I love that.
Yeah. I think yeah, I mean that's a really good point. In the same episode, we got the Stubbs reveal, and then we also got the LC reveal. Speaking of Stubbs, what did you guys take from the moment when the Native American storyline kind of just disappeared? What did you guys think of that? Wasn't that interesting?
I honestly don't know what to think of it.
Yeah.
What their agenda was, or what that tells us about if they're being controlled or not. He says, "What is the line? The only thing that keeps you alive is like the last person you see." I believe something like that.
Is that the line he said in English? Because I missed that and I couldn't get back to it. Was that the line he whispers in the ear in English? There's one line that he says in English. One of the Native Americans says in English.
Yeah,
and I missed completely what he said.
It was something. I'm paraphrasing that, but it was something along those lines.
Yeah. Real quick, I just want to reinforce, if you guys have questions, mark it with hashtag Westworld. It kind of just helps us go through and see exactly what you guys want to address specifically. So with that, Elsie's return, Stubbs' return, magical ghost hosts. I don't know. It's so weird. Like if a host was to do that, if we were to see that through the perspective of a host, it would be immediately explained. That would just be a flashback or a memory. But for to be from the perspective of Stubbs, which I mean we believe is a human, yeah, I don't know. It's very interesting.
Yeah, we're getting Chris Cole, Susan Dunkel, a bunch of people are giving the exact quote. They said, "You only live as long as the last person who remembers you." So,
yes.
Is that an indication?
I thought he was going to cut his throat. Oh my goodness.
Yeah. Is that an indication that Stubbs is no longer with So what's the explanation now for we know that's before the beach. So why is Stubbs still not mentioning them?
I'm so sorry. I'm trying to fix my mic, guys. So, why is he not?
Why is he still holding his cards so close? Why is he looking at a Ghost Nation's head be opened up and not saying that, "Hey, I was captured by these guys"? I mean, it was obviously justified. He was just getting shit from Carl Strand for letting the park go to hell.
Yeah, it's not that he's. Well, it may be that he's holding on to the cards, right? It may be that he knows more than he's willing to say, or maybe talk about the fact that these were the hosts. Like they're opening up the head of a host that potentially was part of the group that spared him and all of the humans. So it may have something to do with that. I'm more leaning toward there's a lot that happens off screen in between that. Like when we see the story of Bernard waking up and Stubbs being there, we don't know what happens in between and Stubbs' rescue and his introduction back into the Delos group. So I don't know if we have enough to say that it's cards that he's holding on to or something he's concealing at all, but it may be. And if it is, then it might be out of respect for the hosts. He may be a host sympathizer.
This is definitely before the dust settles. I'm having all the like my mind is just trying to process everything.
Yeah,
See,
we pretty much hop on like 5 minutes after the episode ends. So,
well,
yeah.
now I had to be resetting the link, so I actually missed the part where they actually. You're saying that they actually disappeared. I actually did not see that because I was trying to get this link set.
Oh yeah, he essentially blinked or the screen changed and they were just gone. Like I don't know. It looked like
So
some.
how clear was this? Was this like for sure that they dissipated, or is this just fancy editing?
I mean that's the thing. I'm not sure.
What do you guys think? Hey, you got to help us in the chat too. Is Ghost Nation literally ghost hosts? Are they, or was it just some some editing to have a little bit of trickery on us since Westworld gave us so much in this episode? So they're like, we got to fuck with them a little bit. And we also start off to let's look into. I got some actual notes here. Most to do with Grace. Oh, cortical fluid. I don't know if that was actually dropped before, but that's what Bernard needed was cortical fluid, and that is I looked it up really quick. That is just to actually to sustain the stem of the cortex, your brain. A part of your brain. So I thought that was interesting. And yeah, I mean, I think it's true to Elsie's character. She's a little like Thelma. She went on and she wasn't fucking about either. She was definitely pulling that trigger pretty quick when those hosts came at her. And she took the Bernards coming out in stride again. Just showing that the show is going to go much further than host versus human. And I guess that if we're going to have any criticism on this, do you think that the turn of, I mean, obviously the reveal is awesome for the MIB and his intentions are awesome, but we just did, I guess I have to rewatch, but now why didn't we see any of these flashbacks? I'm not talking about the William flashbacks. I'm talking about just like when he was in the church and having, like the flashbacks of, when James Delos was going mad. Why wasn't this affecting him before? I guess would be one criticism. There was quite the change for him, quite the transformation, a good one. But I think that maybe a few of those, partialed out would have been a little better because they did throw it all at once.
Do you mean from the perspective of
the Man in Black older, like when he was like seeing like Lawrence's wife and all that, he started having the flashbacks with the shaky hands and all that. When he saw that, it's only in this episode. I think that maybe they could have done that spaced out a little bit. At least like, we wouldn't have needed to see the scenes yet with Delos or all that. We wouldn't even have known what it is, but it would have explained it a little bit more. This, I think, was a little bit heavy-handed with that turn. Again, guys, I mean, I would give this the best episode so far, by far. But
I definitely agree.
Definitely
agree.
Yeah. Could be spaced out, because we wouldn't know. We wouldn't have seen the meetings. I'm not talking about seeing the meetings. I'm just talking about having glimpses of the madness, not showing faces or anything like that. What, he's just getting PTSD now?
No, I mean, I overall just think that if they did any of those glances, then they would really take away from the drama of it.
Debbie?
I thought there was a moment. I think if we're speaking about the man in Black just suddenly now having all of this, it's as if something is suddenly triggering him. Well, definitely even after, I think there's something along his journey which is bringing him back down there. Nothing clear. I mean, obviously after how we were saying before, how the foreshadowing with the daughter and then his daughter and everything, but I don't know why suddenly there's this triggering factor which brings back all these flashbacks. And did you mean that they could have been spaced out more like in previous episodes, like just something that would have hinted to it, or throughout this? Okay.
Yeah, not showing the meetings, just showing just a little bit of fluid, pouring, showing the shakiness and some just in a hand in general. Like, we wouldn't know where, but it would show a certain amount of PTSD because PTSD just, I don't know, maybe I'm not going to dive in. Maybe 35 years later, one day it pops in, but I doubt that's common.
I mean, I don't think I follow your train of thought here. So the Man in Black's PTSD?
Yeah, he's just having these because we are now introduced to his situation with James Delos and the process that happened. So then we start to see, him making these decisions based off of it and having it affect him. I think that it would have been slightly better. And again, I'm just trying to be, real about it. I love the episode. I'm trying to nitpick it almost. But yeah, I think that could have been one narrative device they could have used. They could have spaced those out across a few episodes, just like showing that there was something that was triggering a change in him, because we got the reveal and the change in him like within seconds of each other. Like it just would have been like, oh, that's what those scenes were all about. Like those little glimpses. We're talking about like milliseconds here. Hax,
I mean, well, so like, I kind of get where you're going, right? You're referring to more of like with his wife.
No, I'm talking about he sees the shakiness in Lawrence's wife, and everything that's happening with Jonathan Tucker's character, and then he's flashing back to the events that we now were just shown. That the reveal that we got.
Yes.
We could have had little milliseconds of just a shaky hand. We wouldn't know whose hand that is. Just little hints. And again, being just bringing up some counterpoints here. I mean, I fucking love the episode.
No, I think that the way that they did it, and thank you for everyone that's helping with the audio adjustment. Sorry about that, guys. I think that the way that they did it was the most dramatic it could have ever been. I mean, truthfully, when you see him relating, like when you see him actually coming to terms with, wow, this is how I treated these people. Wow, this is exactly what I put, the pain that I put in other people. And now it's happening, and I'm feeling this relation because of my own outcome in life, my wife taking her own life because of, me. And then seeing that live, and it kind of speaks to his understanding that these are relatable characters. These are not simply hosts, that they are beings able to be felt like he was once able to, in his first time ever going there. I think that's ultimately it, is that it offered revealing everything in this kind of change of character, if you can even call it a change of character. We don't know. Like, he's only done one good thing essentially, but
it's a change of our perspective, I mean, more than anything, because he hasn't changed. It's just the POV has changed. It's like the Jamie Lannister thing, everybody's like, oh man, he turns into a good guy. I'm like, well, no. Remember, we start empathizing with Jamie Lannister once we get a POV chapter. That's called walking in somebody's shoes, so again, and I love everybody's, and thank you so much to everybody, nobody puts a name I can read, our NA, who just gave us $14.99 and said now the finances can read 16.98 or whatever she put. Yes, and that is split, and that goes into the channel. That goes so we're going to be doing Amazon gift cards. We already talked about this previously, to be given out and doing trivia eventually. We haven't figured out, we didn't want to make it hokey, so we haven't figured out a way, and that was already decided between me and Hax to put our own money into at all of our programming and stuff like that. So yes, nobody's getting rich off that, as you can tell from the sheet behind me. So and Milt brought up now the metaphor with Rolling Stones, and I believe it is Playing with Fire. I think that, definitely. I mean, Westworld, every song they pick, and this is not uncommon with a lot of popular television, but Westworld more than ever utilizes their music selection and picks things for a reason. It was interesting that they actually had the actual song now, and that probably costs a shit ton of money, because Rolling Stones songs are notoriously expensive to get the rights to. But I think that it's definitely a metaphor. I mean, they're playing with fire, and then look, he burns in fire. And there was a reference for the Valley Beyond too. I think the Valley Beyond is clearly a reference to what a lot of people believe is heaven or the afterlife or anything like that. So they're trying to get to the Valley Beyond. And I have something that I'll get into in future videos that has to deal with the quantum world and stuff like that can kind of explain the merging of the mechanical and the human. And I think the way that Nolan's going, it's something he's messed with in the past, third dimensions, being in limbo, the existence of what we cannot see is something that is explained by quantum mechanics. I mean, they kind of do it in Inception with the limbo and all that. I think they're definitely going that route. I've found some literature. I'm trying to find somebody that is actually skilled or knows something more than I know about quantum mechanics, which is pretty much anybody, to talk shop about it. But I think that I see a lot of metaphors for them going the quantum way. I mean, it's very popular right now with the QA. It's very popular. Stranger Things, that's what the Upside Down is. Debbie, do you see Nolan? You are a Nolan enthusiast. I think that's probably the reason you watch Westworld is because of the Nolan.
It started from there because of Christopher Nolan, Jonathan Nolan, and everything. It was interesting how you're referencing the limbo. Now, obviously, entering into Inception, this would have a lot of like spoiler effects and everything. But how the limbo can destroy yourself, it can destroy your mind. There's something there to and then also before I said about the Man in Black, he is like a guilty god of what he has created. And even in Inception, there is a lot of this feeling of guilt of what have I created, when we see Cobb, Leonardo DiCaprio's character, regretting some of his decisions. But I don't want to get into too much into Inception, because that would be hours and hours.
This is now an Inception stream.
Yeah, you're a Nolan, I would say more than an enthusiast, a connoisseur. So, do you think it's in their wheelhouse, right? Quantum mechanics, quantum physics, this whole third realm, this is what they mess with. I think this is the next step I think Westworld
I just don't think
it's the quantum world.
It's
not happening right now. What's that?
I just don't think it's relatable. I mean, for instance, I could not tell you anything about quantum physics or mechanics except for what the purpose of it is, or in the application to computing. So I think it's way too out of.
Then why is Stranger Things so? But that's the thing.
Because they don't talk about quantum physics. They talk about a very good story in which it's essentially the manipulation of dimensions, whereas that is much easier to grasp than the idea of anything being anything at any time until it's observed. Like, I don't know. But, I mean, it's hearsay. I think moving back toward the show, however...
well, all I'll say on that is that that's how Westworld would do it. They're not going to break down quantum mechanics. They're just going to show the possibility of a third realm of what some would consider heaven, what some would consider the afterlife, the immaterial world. That's what Stranger Things does. That's what a lot of shows do. That's what the Nolans have done in the past. If they're messing around with the idea of immortality and moving to the valley beyond, the immaterial is something we need to look at. Yeah, of course, they're not going to be putting on a lecture on quantum mechanics. I'm not proposing that. They probably will never even say quantum. I just think that it's going in more of that realm where they're going to introduce the valley. I think the valley beyond is a metaphor for something that is outside of the materialistic world.
Could not agree more. So Chris Cole brings up a good point, all the way back at the top of this chat here. So there's no support in this evidence for Bernard shakes being caused by downloading the huge secret file from Abernathy. And I was so disappointed, but it's not ruled out yet. So with the timeline play that happens, with essentially the flashbacks of him grabbing this little mystery sphere and him, I think at one point it's referenced the moving of data or moving of a character. I still believe that he could have had this in him hidden. Oh, I'm sorry, that was what it was. In one of the frames when Elsie was first looking at the tablet, on the screen it shows, I believe, locked or something locked, and at that point I was like, oh my gosh, maybe he concealed it further than just an encryption key. And so it's kind of broken in this episode, but it's kind of still alive in a way. I think just the data moves more toward the idea that the data is not 35 years worth of data about the entire park. More of it is a character, or it is that mind that he's transporting essentially. That
could be. Yeah. I also thought about it when he says about this other person. That could also be.
Yeah, because on a basic rudimentary level of how you steal an encryption key is essentially how it could have been done in Westworld, with him masking himself as another character to take this private one-time use key. So if they do take this, and I believe that they're very technologically sound, so I pray to God they do, because it's information security, but ultimately, yeah, I don't know. Let me see here.
Yeah. Oh no, I was just reading another question that was up about immortality again.
Yep, go ahead.
Yeah, it says, Steve Cancel says, if you get the sense that William felt in the end that immortality is wrong, that people should not live forever, or that simply people like James Delos should not be able to live forever. Yeah, I think that's what we were saying before about the feeling of guilt. He got to that limit, like humans in general. I think we'll never be satisfied. I was saying that in the video, in the other video, but we'll never be satisfied with our limits. If we know that there can be something, now we don't know it, but if there's even the idea of something beyond, why not try to achieve it? But is it right or is it not? Or are the means to try to get to it wrong? I think there's that moment of guilt when he's just looking around himself, and he has the flashbacks to his wife. Yeah, I think it's a feeling of guilt of what he's done.
I believe that he says some people, right? And so this leaves it open to the idea that maybe they're just working on him still, and that consciousness and a free living human mind inside of a host body is still possible with other people. In the theme of it's a select few that get to pass into the valley beyond, essentially kind of reinforces that as well. But then, yeah, I think maybe it was just more of a personal, like, James Delos specifically wasn't worthy enough to do that, so he just axed it entirely.
And also, they say to the man in black, the little girl from the town. I apologize, I don't know her name either. I think it's the same little girl that spoke to Dolores. Who we can either figure that that's Ford channeling through. I don't know how to take that, but she says, he needs to be looking back. And then, of course, we see him meet Grace at the end, Emily, his daughter. I think that another lesson from this too is that he spent so much time inside the park trying to keep somebody alive that he didn't live his life. He didn't, his wife took her life because he was so tied up in trying to live forever that the others around him didn't even get to live, and he also didn't get to live. So I think that's the bigger picture on that one. Yes, and I agree with both of you guys that it's still a possibility, because that is the terminology. It is not everybody should live forever. So we have to figure, what are they doing still? They're still working on this. So we don't know. Immortality is still on the table. And I think that immortality will always be something that humans yearn for. So, I mean, they're probably going to keep pushing for it. Whether or not that is their primary focus, we don't know. But the ethical question, which Westworld asks us more than not, it's usually what is the actual big picture here? Not about, can they feel? It's like, okay, what does it matter if they're exactly like us? So it's the question of, should we try to live forever, or is there a way for us to live a more fulfilled life, just living your life, not trying to be a god? Being a god is obviously framed as not a very good thing within Westworld. Anybody that plays God in this show, it doesn't turn out well.
Yeah, I don't know. It all goes back to, if you clone your mind, you put it into another host, are you still alive, or is that just the clone of you? Is that a lesser being? And I don't think they're going to tackle anything like that. They kind of already have with Ford's monologue about consciousness overall. There is no defining point. There is, nothing to say that your feelings aren't real when a human's feelings are real. So I don't know if they're going to go that route. But let me see here. Questions. Sorry, guys, we're still getting used to the new setup here.
Yeah, I think that, it's going to boil down to what is going to be outside of this park now. We need to really, even more so, try to focus on what is the outside world like. That is it possible, because the riddle of the Sphinx deals with disease and plague as well. It deals with that whole theme. So, what is the state of the outside world? And even going past the question of, are the hosts conscious? Are they sentient? Are humans? What is even the validity of that type of language? Those types of ideologies, is what is going on outside the world that the host could help or hurt? Or what is this master plan? Who's running Delos now? Like, who is she talking to? I mean, it goes from the man in black seeming to be running everything to who's on the other side of this. I mean, I guess he only ran Delos Destinations. I mean, that's what's a little confusing to me as well, is that, you know, the first season he was framed as just, he's just a majority shareholder as well as a board member. But I mean, if you're a majority shareholder for Apple, you can't walk in there and start fucking around with the product. That's not how it works here, you know, but he is a board member. But it's like, so who's above him? Who's on the other side when Charlotte's talking? You know, what is the master plan?
Mm-hmm.
What are they trying to achieve? You know, it's something that is either so big that William doesn't know about it, or it's something that doesn't matter enough that he doesn't care because he's still fucking around in the park. So that's what's throwing me for a turn here. I mean, again, this episode changed. I get why everybody loved this episode. The people who got the pre-screens, because it just throws everything into a tailspin. Really, you know, we have to reevaluate everything. It's like, okay, so immortality, again, is it still on the table? Because I don't think we're ever going to stop trying to do it. Because, you know, what did he say, James Delos, when you elude the devil or something, you know, or whatever, cheat the devil.
The devil, something like I is that I'm not so good with English under this aspect, but is that a way of saying in the English language, does that have a meaning? Is it how do you call it, one of those sentences? I'm sorry. As you can tell.
I think that it probably does. I don't know if it's like a common phrase or anything like that.
That's what I meant. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's just it's actually probably sampled from some book that I'm not aware of yet. I'm sure.
So it's not.
I'm sure it's a
not
drama.
A common sentence. Okay. I thought maybe it meant something.
Well, we're all trying to cheat death. Most people just, I mean, he just assumed, I guess he was going, if you believe in hell, I guess, you know, he's just alluding to, hey, he was for sure going to hell. So he's, you know, he's cheating the devil.
Okay.
I mean, yeah, but nobody walks around talking like that. Hopefully.
So so the next question is, if you had to guess who is the other copied person? I mean, I think overall we come to, it could be Ford, it could be Arnold. I don't know. I mean, it's really open for debate. I think Ford lessens the blow of you know, his sacrifice in season 1. I really do think, and I'm gonna have to sit down and weigh this out and investigate what it does for the story. But I think it really could be Arnold. But at the same time, it kind of lessens Bernard's character if it is Arnold, and then what's the point of Bernard? And actually, maybe he's a shell. Just, you know, actually, yeah, he's probably just a shell. And then once Arnold gets back, then, you know,
no, he becomes who he is. Like he tells Elsie this episode, he goes, you know, and I can make my own decisions now. So he becomes a totally different person. You know, these narratives are definitely part of who they are. And I always have to stress that we can't disregard Wyatt. We can't disregard Dolores as being both of those. And that even though somebody told her and she understands the method in which she achieved these thoughts, it still doesn't lessen them. Yeah. You know, it doesn't matter. That's still a part of her. So, I mean, but they will slowly become, you know, because that's the really interesting thing. And the one thing about Westworld that is kind of a negative is that with the they focus so much on the first season about the achievement of sentience, again a word I hate saying, and with Bernard's, you know, cognitive issues, we haven't been able to focus as much on the actual because the real interesting thing is what do they do once they get it, you know, because the method in which they gain it, the validity of consciousness as just even a thing is up in the air. You know, it's just something that we built off of, you know, what we have. We're very biased. So, you know, once they start to be able to make their own decisions, what decisions do they make? Those are now we're seeing that with Dolores really well. And we're seeing I think we're going to get that with Maeve a lot too. I just, you know, the Bernard storyline's throwing a wrench in it. So I'm not complaining too much. Obviously we talk about the show all the time. We spend 14 hours, you know, making videos on it, even more sometimes. So what I'm saying is I would hope that we're going to get some clarity from him, and because it is about what do they do once they have the decisions, you know. Not everything's a master plan. I think that was the point of the railroad scene, was showing, like, I mean, they're just going off the rails, I guess pun intended, that they are not making the best.
Yeah.
he says in season 1, oh, we're alleviating them from the burden of having, the worries and stuff, when he's talking about wiping the memories and all that. But Dolores talks about in season 1, that why would she want to forget pain? Pain is all she has, of her family, remembering her father and all that. So, now that they retain the information and it's not wiped on a daily basis, and they're making decisions that aren't written by a hack like Lee Sizemore, what do? That's what's interesting, because the contrived way in which they have framed, sentience, they have to. It's a television show. So, I mean, yeah, I remember people literally thought it was a physical maze they had to walk through. So if they turned left, it would be sentient, so like, yeah, you have to form some way to get this. You have to do that. I mean, it's a television. They have to, have the building blocks there. But now they're there. So what do they do with it? That's the interesting thing.
Yeah. To clarify, not if in season 1 you thought that the maze was a physical construct, you are not alone, and we're in no way saying that you're not a smart person for believing that. I mean, I remember when we were still trying to guess who the Man in Black was. There was countless threads about who, it being Logan, or the importance of Logan and how he plays. So really, and the whole reason I bring this up is like the commentary and the community around theory crafting is if you're afraid to be wrong, or if you're afraid to put something out there, or ask a question, or propose something that's like so out there it's insane, I mean, you're holding yourself back. It's about that commentary. It's about proposing crazy things, like maybe the maze was just a Stanley Kubrick inspired maze that you had to traverse through, as opposed to this construct. So, I mean, it all goes back to theory crafting is ultimately just hanging out and doing that.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not trying to get down on anybody. I'm just saying that we know now, and everybody should definitely know now, that the Nolans are taking a deeper approach to this show. The show is not about who or what; it's about why.
With that, wouldn't it be just the most opposite thing for them to now make the door actually the physical door? They're like, everyone thinks it's a psychological test or something they have to go through. Nope, actually, it's just the front door to the facility.
Well, I take it as the opening of the door into William's life. Like Grace, like I said, when she left the garage, Emily. God, now I can't. They put that name on IMDb 1 week. I'm gonna call her forever. But Emily, she's walked through the door. She's merged his worlds. And that there's so much that is great about that. I am sad to see Jonathan Tucker go. Such a great actor, but he's so good at playing a dick that he constantly dies in series. So maybe that's kind of a plague. They're like, you're the guy for the dick. He's like, am I going to die right away? They're like, absolutely. But he's such a damn good actor. It does seem like, I guess we should move on to something, since this episode threw us for such a tailspin. I guess they give us answers and we don't know what to do with them. But what do we see going on with Shogun World now that we have this totally different point of view on this show that we love? What do we see going on for next episode? I didn't get the luxury of finishing the in the coming weeks, or even seeing it.
I don't. Oh, sorry.
Oh, you're good.
Debbie, go.
I was saying we don't actually see anything, do we, of Shogun in this episode, or do we? If I missed anything, but I don't think we actually see any references to it. So I think we're left at the same point we were with the previous episode. Or did I miss something?
No, that's pretty much it. I was actually really, really rooting for them putting something in this episode, because it is Mother's Day, of course. So the idea that a mother is reuniting with her child and overcoming extreme odds to get back to her, her child, I think it would have been a really cool Mother's Day thing. But I think all next episode is going to be the big payoff for Shogun World.
Well, yeah, I mean, the name is Shogun World for the title, I believe. Somebody's saying Emily is a host. Yeah, maybe that would be a cruel trick on him. Again, like this, we have to reevaluate the relationship of Ford and the Man in Black and stuff like that. Somebody proposed that they thought it might be Vinyl World when they saw the opening. Yeah, that would be, Carrie, I think we would call that failed franchise world. It costs a shit ton of money to make. When I was referencing how much Rolling Stones cost, that show spent a bunch of money on getting the rights to a lot of Rolling Stones songs. And I believe Mick Jagger was a executive producer on that, and that show failed horribly. If they fail big. Let's see.
Can I just say a thing about Jonathan Nolan? Like, seeing how he's written most of his works in the past, and we were saying about theories, every single thing I think I've seen written by him leaves more questions than the ones it answers. And I think that's part of the beauty. So I think it's part of the. I think Inception. He didn't actually write Inception; like Christopher Nolan wrote it, but they are very similar ways of creating their art. But Interstellar, you know, everything. There's always a Memento. I mean, we were saying before about theories, about how the theories, you know, bring something more to it, and that's true. That's totally true. Every single ending, everything, even if there's something concrete that we see in the product, there's always something more philosophical, ethical behind it. So that was just my quick thing I wanted to say.
Yeah, I think so much time goes into the overall narrative of it, right? I feel like every scene with James Delos in this. I mean, if you break down just the first opening credit scene, or I'm sorry, opening sequence when we see James in this maybe heaven-like room, right? It's all white. There's anything that he could hope for in his current frame of mind, at least. We see him going through a repetitious day. You know, he's essentially that goldfish in that room, and I loved it. I loved every part of that.
Hey, what do you speaking of that room, what do you guys think of? Did you notice that it was obviously he couldn't see, it was one-way glass or whatever you want to call it. You know what I mean? Like, remember how last season it's always brought up that, like, man, like, how are they getting away with so much shit? You know, like with these clear, you know, pane glass windows. Do you think any of these windows that maybe at the Delos destinations, like actual work sites, that the workers, especially since they might be hosts, believe that they are, you know, not being seen by any means?
I'm actually not sure. I mean, are you asking if that single?
It could be I mean, I know there's a specific reason why it wasn't just clear plain glass, you know, for this. I get that, but I'm saying it, you know, it does kind of frame the way you look at because it was kind of, they made a big point to show like how, like, whatever you want to call it, how out in the open everything was, you know, how transparent the Delos destinations, even though they're not, with all their sinister plans, but yeah, you can see everything that's happening in every room. Why are all these people doing all this messed up stuff and not getting caught? You know, I just thought it was an interesting to see one of those rooms actually, you know, with the glass blocked out. But I think, okay, so we have a I cannot say this. Binoy Shah, solving the riddle of the Sphinx leads to the creation of the Olympians, the new gods. Who may be the new gods? Enlightened host, enlightened William, enlightened humanity. Yeah, I think that, you know, I mean, the riddle of the Sphinx, again, I won't say everything right, Epidus and all that. I mean, it really not just ties into this episode, it ties into this whole, I mean, it's all an ongoing story. Then you have Epidus Rex and all that, where he marries his mother, which is very important for Mother's Day, in all the other plays. But the story, you know, if you look at all the plays and all the stories and whatever, I'm just going to call it a Greek tragedy. Anybody that's a philosophy major, you're welcome to come on. We'll be happy to have you. But yeah, it definitely, it is a great metaphor for Westworld. The Riddle of the Sphinx is not just a great title for this actual episode. It's a great metaphor for this series, you know, because it questions what is humanity. It questions a lot of different things, even tropes like the speaking in riddles, like Ford does. The tricking of Epidus to you know, that he isn't aware of his actual background, and you know, obviously he didn't marry his mother because he wanted to, from what I know. The delusion, to trying to overcome fate are predetermination. I guess, I mean, I think it's fair to say fate and predetermination are the same thing. The story, hey, am I too far off?
You're rambling. Yeah. I think overall the idea of the enlightened gods or hosts, I really just think it's going to be, you know, the conscious hosts. Yeah, I think it really can't be more than that, because.
But with Epidus, they talk about cheating fate and predetermination. The hosts have to cheat predetermination in the form of their narratives. That's what I'm talking about. The overall theme of the riddle of the Sphinx works on multiple levels for this. It's something that goes along with it. This person's talking about, I don't know exactly, if they're going to be relating them to any gods or anything like this, but that story is very relatable as a whole to this whole series. There's every aspect of that story fits Westworld. Literally almost every, except for the mom thing, maybe.
Maybe.
When Dolores confronts the man in black and she says, one day this world will not be inhabited by humans, but by a new race of.
Yes.
Does she refer to herself and everybody like her as gods? I think she does, but it will be new gods will reign here. Gods, is it gods or is it just a new race that she says? Or am I thinking
a new kind? I believe she says a new kind will run the earth. But
okay.
I was actually going to reference that. Is that dialogue?
That's a beautiful scene. Actually, it's so powerful.
So good. Yeah.
It's one of the best.
Yeah, Amber. Yeah, I would love to. Obviously, you have the allegory of the cave with Plato. The philosophy in Westworld is endless. There's Wisecrack does it really well and stuff like that. I would love to get an actual philosophy. I'm somebody that is interested in philosophy, but I don't frame myself as an expert. But yeah, no, I agree. It's just, the allegory of the cave is, it wasn't just an accident that the Nolans made this secret facility be in a cave. All right. That's what I'm talking about. You can take the riddle of the Sphinx, you can apply it. You can apply it in a number of ways. You can take allegory of the cave and do the same thing. The Nolans do things. They don't just make it because they're like, man, we're gonna make a cool ass robot show, which they did. Yeah. But they make sure they're asking us deeper questions, questions that are commentaries on issues of today. Like what should define somebody deserving of just humane treatment, and just breaking down social constructs. And it's a commentary on just being a human, what makes us human, and what is there any advantage to us cheating God? Should we even be trying to do it? I'm not a big believer in having just blind faith and stuff. I like some science behind stuff, but it brings up questions, and it brings up questions to have conversations about. And then you get the fun, who's a host, who's not a host. I think that it would be interesting for the copy of the person to maybe be Emily. That would be interesting. I hope it's not true. Maybe it's William's wife. Maybe maybe he's leading him back to her, or maybe it's just a backup copy of himself in case he sees this is kind of going how it's going with Dolores. He's like, oh shit, they weren't ready, I gotta come back.
And the thing, sorry, I keep on interrupting people.
Oh no, it's okay.
Just the idea of Ford coming back is too much connected to the classic idea we have of resurrection and of religion. This is not this when we speak of immortality, when we speak of death, of gods and everything, it's all on more of an ethical manner. It's the words that we use because we don't have any other words to describe this. It's not on like a standard religion type of God and like death and immortality and heaven, hell. So I think that if Ford just suddenly came back, like as Jesus coming back from the dead, it would be too simple maybe for the series. Like the lion, Narnia. Narnia is Christianity, and the lion like coming back with the eye opening. I think that would be too simple maybe for Westworld.
No, I agree. I've had to fend people off with pitchforks in the Mino community last season when I was fighting that Ford shouldn't come back, because there's some good videos on it about how fanboys, they frame it like that, don't know what's good for them. And sometimes, we don't. We just want a character back so much that we're willing to defy all logic. We sometimes don't. The fandom doesn't know, because Anthony Hopkins, he's so great. I'm like, yeah, I know he is. I get it. I love him too, but it takes away from the whole narrative. It doesn't add to it. You know what I mean? And they've confirmed it like multiple times. And they already did the biblical thing. Of course, there's theology in this as well. That like Debbie was just so beautifully saying that, it's there, but I don't think they're going to be so spot on with it. I think the closest we're going to get is, Arnold didn't allow Dolores to commit original sin because he forced her to do it. So, that's why Ford, very heavily coerced, but, she made the decision to pick the apple metaphor, shooting the gun, blowing his head off, killing him. So that was the original sin that needed to be committed. So yeah, there's always the biblical connections. We have no issues with those or anything. But yeah, I mean, it's a general statement. But yeah, Anthony Hopkins ain't coming back, people. So
in before next episode, it's just him walking in the front door. The door
He's
is just
like,
him. Yeah.
just saying, fuck you,
Heavenly
Justin,
music.
on everything.
Light behind him. I'm back.
He just descends from the sky. So I forget who asked this question, and I believe that we missed it entirely, maybe like 30 minutes ago. But someone brought up the idea of the Man in Black possibly being a host, and I think that this has a little bit of credence because of the way that the season finale essentially. I mean, if you're William facing down a horde with no gun, assumingly no gun, you're at a party. Why would you have one? You get shot in the arm, then you magically wake up in the middle of the entire thing, hiding under dead bodies. I think there's some credence there. I think it might be stretching, or I'm sorry, reaching, but there is something there, and I think that the reason that we hear the distorted younger William's voice in their conversation between James Delos and himself at the retirement party is also something that aligns with that theory that's still trying to be developed. But yeah, maybe.
So young William as a host.
I don't know. I think if they do, then no. I mean, I think it's just weird that he was able to
Survive.
Yeah, to survive that. I mean, he's facing down Clementine, obviously gets shot in the arm, wakes up, and assuming, I mean, if you look at the scene, one of the biggest issues people had in the first episode was that he's just has this broken arm from Dolores, and the other arm is shot, and now he's just like actively in combat with other hosts. That happens. He wakes up right in the middle of everything.
What about Charlie? What about Charlie? What about Arnold's son?
Say that again. I'm sorry.
What about Arnold's son? Possible candidate. If it's not Arnold, I still kind of like Arnold because Ford maybe thought after it's all done, he could come back and enjoy what he originally wanted, like a saying of thank you, if it was ever possible, because he said it took 35 years for me to correct my mistake. So maybe, it wouldn't take away if they did it at the very end, anything from Bernard, because Bernard would be a completely different person by then. Not completely, but he would have formed he would have wrote his own narrative. But yeah, I mean, Charlie, it could be, that leads to the damn Charlotte Hale, the one of the ones. I love the bridge. And I just told him this too. I'm like, I hate the theory, but he makes it work. He proposes that Charlotte Hale is actually Charlie. That would make that possible. That would make that possible. Then we have to assume that they've cracked it and they left, because that's what we have to figure out, guys, is we have to think if they've cracked immortality, but they still yet let James Delos sit in solitary insanity, which from the terminology used, we have no reason to believe they did or did not. It's open, definitely, for discussion, like everything, but actually for interpretation, Yeah.
I think maybe it could. I don't know if they introduce Charlie as the Data, then maybe to give him a companion and a host companion. I feel like I'm trying to create something to explain this, and in reality, it's probably not going to happen. I don't think it's going to be Charlie. If we're referring to the little bulb right at the end, or what Bernard was, tasked with doing, it's got to be Arnold or it's got to be Ford. It might even be Teresa, for all I know. Maybe he feels bad that she was just one of the good ones that didn't need to die. I just don't think we have enough evidence to really say for certain yet.
It's brought up that Charlotte tested human. Well, so did Bernard. So that I don't know if that's like an honor system. Like if they're just trying, I don't know how competent that system of testing the host is, because Bernard slipped by it a few times, so we can't really take that. I mean, again, I like the idea of Arnold, and I mean that's the question that they want us to ask now is like, okay, so who's the copy made of? But yeah, I mean, we can't take that host test or at least I don't recommend we take that too seriously, because I mean, I don't know how Bernard's passing it.
Yeah. Well, the other thing Will brings up is that Ford would have had to have copied Arnold's brain before he died, which we don't know that was what he was working on at all. And I propose that he wasn't working on that at all. That was entirely this corporate research group and William's motivation in the question, or the answer to a question no one's ever dreamed of asking. So I ultimately don't think it's Arnold with that in mind, because that would have to assume that Ford would know about something that that William didn't even know about at the time that he
Wait,
died.
Ford knew something that nobody else knew? Ford had some sort of a master plan? That sounds too far stretched for you, Hax?
Ford would have to have time travel to accomplish that.
Yeah, no, I agree with you.
Yeah.
But I think it is. Don't you think it's an interesting way to look at it, though? Because it is kind of hard now to determine, like, with season 1, do you agree or disagree that it seems like Ford was privy and had far more control than William ever had, and now it seems like William is straight like running everything. So there's a little bit of a discrepancy there, and I think that, you know, who is on the other side when Charlotte is talking also makes me wonder. I mean, how is William just? I guess we're gonna have to see. We all know, say R.I.P. to Logan doing nuclear heroin. I thought it paid off. I thought that was gonna go swimmingly. You know, in any case, but yeah, it's not him. So it's like, who's on the other side of this line? You know, the power base has definitely shifted. The POV has shifted. The power base has shifted. But I agree. The timeline doesn't make it work.
Yeah.
And I guess, do we have to look at it? Does it make it really matter if it's somebody in particular? Just like the making of that host when Teresa was being killed didn't really matter. It didn't show it's operational. Or is just Arnold being there in the first place? I think that the person does matter with the way they phrased it. I think they definitely matter, whoever it is.
Oh, definitely.
It's not. Yeah.
100%.
Not just the process. You know what I mean? So it does unfortunately have to be somebody, and I guess that's you're going to see a million content creators with videos out on it, telling you that they know, but we're all probably not going to strike Grace twice in a month.
Yeah.
But
Go ahead.
No, go ahead. It was just a quick.
Debbie, you can talk.
No, as every detail counts in this series, I still have thoughts about that girl at the end. Is that Ford speaking? Why does she speak about the game? Why does she give clues and then just suddenly switches and runs off to her mother and father? The Hispanic girl, I mean.
Mm-hmm.
Like, why? Why would she have suddenly? That's not just a host interacting. That's something. It just sounded as if Ford was speaking. If you see what I mean.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think it ultimately goes back to the El Lazo scene. It is him speaking. I actually thought that he was going to massacre everybody again. Like, hey man, I thought I told you you're supposed to travel this alone. Oh my God, he's supposed to travel this alone, and now he just met his daughter, which means that by definition he will not be traveling alone. I mean, he's already riding with a camp of people, so it doesn't make sense that he's essentially allowed to go with these people, but not El Lazo's people. I mean, regardless. But the idea of him now being with his daughter, 100%, one of them is going to die. I mean, if this entire thing is that he has to travel this alone, and now a significant character is being put on his team, I can only attribute that to one of them is going down.
Well, and 2, we just saw them meet. I would go ahead and probably lean more towards yes, they're going to be traveling together, but we don't know for sure, you know, that they are going to be on this together. She could choose to, you know, throw him a curveball, and maybe they're both looking for the same thing.
Very
and
true.
She wants to get there first. You know what I mean?
True.
Trust me. I'm just throwing a counterpoint out there. It does seem like they're going to team up, but we do have the language in the episode of, she probably would like to see me get shot dead.
The other part of that is that in Grace's in Grace Emily's opening scene, when Nicholas approaches her and goes, are you here hunting? Or I believe they use the word kill at some point, but what are you hunting? And he goes, Bengal tigers. And she goes, among other things. And the camera just pans at her like Jim looking in the camera at the office. Like, it's obviously not just going to be Bengal tigers. So the idea that she's going to kill something there also aligns to that. I just feel like I feel like the interaction with them when they first came and were like, oh, hey, Dad. I just feel like that's so out of place if that is their goal. If she's there to hurt him and then he reinforces that they have a terrible relationship in the same episode. I don't know.
He doesn't have to be there to hurt him, but she doesn't need to be there to help him, you know. And who's to say that it's not James Delos who was copied as well? And there's a backup, and it is William's wife, also, and maybe that is what knowledge she is privy to. Why she's, you know, she has the symbol from the facility, and that's why she's looking at it to bring her mother back. Again, I don't think they're really pushing that we should be trying to do that, but they're definitely looking for something. And you know, I don't think she's just there to say, "Hey, Dad." I'm proposing that, you know, she could just be going on a mission still, and he's kind of smiling because he might understand, and that the knowing that his wife's, you know, memories or whatever are in there, like he would get that, you know. I mean, he obviously, because he says too that she's you know, they in the scenes before that he talks about how smart she is and all that, so it's like that's his worthy adversary right there, his own daughter. Yeah. You know, I don't think we have any reason to believe one way or another.
So Amber Lynn brings up a really good point, is that Man in Black is going to take a bullet for her, and I agree. I think that could very well be exactly where this is heading. You know, but I do think that one of them has to go, and Milt brings up that Ed Harris's contract hasn't been renewed for next season. Yeah, I mean,
ooh, good comment with it. I love that.
Don't know.
Casting news you can learn a lot from. Thank you, Milt.
Yeah, I think we might see the ending of our lovable Ed Harris.
Maybe that's the ultimate way he can, I don't know, give back, even if it's not giving back. But he's like, I've taken away so much from my family. Maybe this is the only way I can. I don't know.
Yeah, he's just like, well, I've already gotten your mother killed and your uncle and your grandfather.
Yeah.
I might as well just off myself as well.
But disappearing.
No,
yeah. I know. I'm just kidding. Yeah.
Just like if it would be in a situation in which he had to choose between himself or his daughter, maybe he'd think like, maybe by now it's enough.
I agree, and I addressed this in my Who is Grace video, is that the dynamic of them going to the same place and then Dolores also heading for that same place. I mean, that's going to change. Even if you hate each other, if you are now being hunted by, you know, killer robots, you're essentially going to team up. You know, at some point there's a divide of human and host, and you have to take sides of your family, even if you hate your family. We haven't been given enough drama into her character to think that she's just anti-father, you know.
Yeah, I think that disappearing from her life is not the correct way to mend disappearing from her life. You know, because that's essentially what he did. You know, is he wasn't a part. He wasn't there. He was never there. You know, I mean, he was always, at least mentally, in Westworld. You know, trying to live in another park. And now we know that there's a little bit of a better reason for it. But yeah, I mean, it definitely, I mean, it's shockable for Westworld for him to, you know, no, and jump into the bullet, but it makes more sense than not. Yeah, I mean, it's too early to say. Yeah, I mean,
it doesn't get more real than that.
It doesn't. That happens all the time. Maybe it's Logan. They just want to bring him back, and then he does heroin like immediately again and dies.
That's so funny. I was thinking maybe the little marble right at the end was either Logan or the mother.
Yeah, I mean,
I think it'll be more just a shot in the dark with those two. I don't really think of any immediate supporting evidence for those, but yeah, I don't know. I think, man, I just cannot wrap my head around who it could be. There's not one thing that certainly sticks out, but it does show credence in one of the, someone pointed this out on Reddit, is that the encryption package or the file, I believe, said passenger, right? But it was spelled in leet speak, so it was all numbers and characters as opposed to just saying passenger. And everyone at the time theorized that it was James Delos being the package and 35 years worth of knowledge being in this module now uploaded to Peter Abernathy, trying to get out of the park. but yeah, why? No, man, I'm so torn. I just cannot. I cannot.
We're not
going to
figure it out
this.
tonight.
Yeah.
We're not going to
No.
figure it out tonight, people. I think the questions that stand are, okay, Maeve's journey to find her daughter. Dolores is whatever she's trying to accomplish right now. Essentially destroy the park. And where is MIB going? Where is he going right now? Okay, let's say Emily is going with him or not. Where is he headed? Debbie?
Beyond. Oh.
This was what I was saying earlier, that I am starting to lose track of all of his journey. This was like today in this episode, for how confused everything was. The Man in Black's narrative of what he's actually going to do was the most confusing out of all. I've started to lose track.
It is present day. We have to assume it's present day, I would think. I mean, at least a current timeline. Like past the 2 week, or just before the 2 week. I mean, marker. Hax, where would you put it? I'd put it just before the flood incident.
Oh, sure. I mean, yeah. It's probably 3-4 days after the massacre.
So how are they going to play a part in this, the events that lead up to this flood that we see at the very beginning and in episode 1? And how is Maeve, we have to look at Shogun World is going to be introduced. Dolores is going to be on her journey. Teddy, we see the most current timeline we've seen. There's been a whole bunch of water in a valley and a whole bunch of hosts that they say are dead. And Bernard says he killed them. So how are they going to get there with this new information? Where is Ed? Because he says they should be heading north. You know what I mean? Like that's what he says. He says they're heading west. They should be heading north. It's like, so what does he know? Like where to do what? You know what I mean? That's what we got to wonder. That's what we got to try to figure out. Maeve, she's just on her personal journey, which is fine. I love it. But I don't see her I see her coming in at the end to play a pivotal role, because I don't think that's going to go swimmingly either for her. Again, I think it's very possible that she has another mother and she's going to have to face the issue of, well, that mother has just as much of a right as I do, therefore, because that's the loving narrative that she's embracing. So I think that there's going to be a team up of Maeve and Dolores at some point. I do see them combining because they obviously have different methods for this, different approaches. And I think that neither approach is going to go great. So I think that it's hard to know where the MIB is headed, both mentally and actually physically right now, because he seems to know something, but he's not letting us know. Westworld. And we have to figure out what's going on with Charlotte Hale and Bernard, and now Elsie, and we have to wait for the reunion with Elsie and Stubbs. I think that'll give us the most answers about Ghost Nation, because we have to believe that Stubbs would be honest with Elsie at least.
Yeah. Real quick, I do want to address the Ghost Nation storyline. It looks like we were skipping your question, sir. Sorry for that. Ultimately, our take on the Ghost Nation Stubbs situation, where he whispers into his ear, and then the next frame is just essentially they're all gone. I believe in the chat someone referenced that it wasn't meant to be anything like they were just mysterious creatures disappearing into the night, or I'm sorry, anything more than that, like they were just physically ran off, or I don't know, because I feel like they would have shown that. I do believe that the fact that one scene in an entire show based around these flashbacks, in one scene of what we know to be a human, for them to do this drastic shift, I think it means something. Now, we talked about this in the very beginning of the show, I believe, and we couldn't come to a definitive thing, but it is important, and there is going to be more to analyze there.
Yeah, I think, was it a loop?
Yeah, that's the frame, right? If that was a host in that same situation, we would immediately go, oh, okay, that is just them remembering a different story, or we're seeing from a previous perspective. But, unless it's as obvious as Stubbs is a host, which could be, very well could be, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, they're both going for that. The weapon is what they're going for north, I guess, or what Dolores sees as a weapon.
They're going west. To clarify.
Yeah, I forget when he says they're going north when they should be going west. Is that what he said? So it was the other way around.
The train tracks were going north.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry, I had that twisted around.
And that might be important, but I think what he references at the time is that Ford, the narrative Ford is just because if their goal is to kill people and then put them on these train tracks is like a creepy external narrative, and they've been doing this for 3 to 4 days after their loop is supposed to end, then yeah, maybe they're just running out of train track room and they don't know where to put the train anymore.
I think it's just an example of objectifying people at the highest level, like
Yeah.
the most harsh level ever, of making them a steel panel rod.
Yeah.
Sorry, Debbie.
No, no. I was just thinking. Actually, I have my laptop is like running out, like dying fast. I'm like looking at
Oh.
it's turning red and red.
All right, you're
panicking.
like Bernard leaking out there. Yeah, I mean, I don't think we're gonna go on for too much longer because I mean, I think we should recap really quick what we got, essentially what we know, and which is a lot. But with Westworld, man, those bastards! I can't even enjoy my theory being right because now everything is different. Be careful what you wish for, people. Yeah, you just want to do we can take turns if you want to start off a quick summary of the episode and what you think, Hax, we should take from this, and I can jump in and we'll round it up because like we said, we probably should be theory crafting live for 4 hours. That's not gonna get our theory videos out, and that's not gonna get people to know anything more. You're gonna just deal with the insanity we have to deal with internally here, and the whole point is for you guys to enjoy this, not deal with the madness.
Sorry about that. So essentially, what we learn is that James Delos is alive in a sense, or the mapped brain of him is alive. They go through, so it proves that this theory of Williams' research group was to cure his ailment exists, and that overall goal is immortality. And that's amazing. I'm so glad that came to fruition. Now, I will say that it doesn't prove that is what the Valley Beyond is, but it doesn't disprove it. I think the fact that they were so blunt with this episode, 4 out of 10 episodes in, kind of shows that maybe it's not. Maybe the Valley Beyond isn't immortality, but no, probably not. I don't know, but it doesn't.
No theory crafting. No theory.
Yeah, yeah. Sorry. So James Delos is essentially probably not a character we're going to see too much longer. I think the importance of him dying in the way that he did in the big red room kind of symbolized the devil leaving, William turning into William turning into the good guy in a sense that, it was, just an overall journey of him. But then we come to Bernard and Elsie's journey, better reinforcing the idea of a host sympathizer, so showing that human and host can work side by side, giving kind of an interpersonal relationship to, hey, what if Dolores comes right at this moment? We would see Bernard say, please don't kill this human, but at the same time, she would. There would be some kind of drama there. So the better development of Elsie as she returns to this big screen. We learn more about the research group and what they're doing. We confirm that Emily is Grace, or Grace is Emily, and that's amazing. Stubbs returns, and we see him interact with the Ghost Nation. As outside of that,
and I guess we can't even say we see no, really well done. I guess we really can't say though that Stubbs returned because we've seen him at first. We just see because we're actually seeing a timeline before this. We're just seeing where he was at. But no, I mean, I'm not taking away from it whatsoever. We're seeing his situation because I mean that's the whole thing. They showed us what happened, the 2 weeks ahead, and now we need to figure out what happened in between. So it's very important. The Ghost Nation thing, guys, I think that's the big question on that, and the whole what is the master plan thing and who's the copy are 3 big questions. What's going on? We don't know. We will sit here, and if you guys want, hey, we'll sit with you all night. Well, Debbie's laptop is dying, so Debbie will literally stay here until she dies. Her laptop dies, and we could do it all night. But I don't know how entertaining that'll be. I do think there's something to be said for brevity, which I always try to work on with my actual videos. But I don't think we're going to come to that answer tonight. It's mind blowing to all of us, and there's no answer for it. And it does everything shows that they're trying to frame that like it's the same way a host would see it, but I can't personally say that I think that shows that Stubb is a host. But they're definitely going that route. That's how they cinematically did it. I don't really know all of what that means. I think that we saw like a duality here. We saw like how Elsie accepted, Bernard as a host immediately, like Hax was saying, and Dolores, was not accepting of humans at all. So we can see that the humans aren't always going to be the bad guys here. I mean, I know it's not apples for apples either, so nobody jump down my throat, but I think it's an interesting take that we see some, like I said, they have to have sympathetic human characters other than Felix and Sylvester.
Yep.
So
very important if the overall progress is to get them out and be impactful characters. They can't just come out the park waging war on the entire world. It cannot be that, right? I mean, there's no way it's that. If it is, then just any nation with any developed military worth, a single tank could probably take out their entire force right now. So it can't be.
I don't know. Ford didn't go down or whatever that was. No, but that was the worst. Yeah. You talked about that. He's like, oh, why do you think they I go, how much time you got? Because we'll turn that into Swiss cheese poking holes in it. I think that was just badly done. But yeah, I'm sorry. I agree with you. Yeah, I mean, like one competent person with a tank would take him down.
Yeah, but overall, I think that's about it. And really the last thing to end that on is, Man in Black William is now reunited with his daughter, and there's going to be a drama with that, and there's going to be probably a million ways that they could take it, and I think that's really important. And I believe that from the IMDb page of the casting, she's been slotted for 3 episodes, so this would be 2. I really hope that that's not true. I feel like this is a really, really good dynamic character they could do a million things with. So I hope that that's just like the same kind of IMDb page showing her name as Grace, false flag. But yeah, I think that's overall synopsis of the episode.
Yeah, I agree with you too. And we also have to look at the possibility, even though it's not a thrilling one, that she wouldn't be dead, but with us having somewhat of bottle episodes, not in a bad way, but like Shogun, we didn't see Maeve or Dolores per se. So 2 more episodes, could be solely focused on that relationship with them, and she could be back for the next season. I do hope it's more than that too, because I watch my video. It's just me ranting about how much I want this. So you know what I mean. I think we might have lost Debbie. If you guys have not checked out Debbie's channel, please do. We went outside of the circle of usual content creators who we work with to find somebody unique and passionate, and Debbie is all of those things and very intelligent, and I love having her on here as part of this. She's a huge Nolan enthusiast and into all the works that Nolans do, but she's a very good authority on Westworld. But she talks about, if you guys like film in general, I recommend Debbie's channel too. I mean, if you like to dive outside of the normal just fandom where it's always the theory videos and stuff, she talks about film on a wider level, I believe. So I'm just going to do her spot for her. Her laptop died, poor thing. Yeah. So yeah, I mean,
she is a host. She ran out of juice.
Did we copy her mind?
Yeah. Nope, copy.
We forgot. We just copied mine. That's pointless. No, we couldn't thank you guys enough. We had a great amount of people in here. We started off somewhat unprofessionally because we were trying to get OBS set up, and a little bit scatterbrained because we were trying to get this platform set straight. That's part of it. I'm sorry that you have to see us forming like this, but we will keep getting it tighter and tighter. Hax is an authority on Westworld, not just the storyline, but especially with the tech and stuff. I'm so passionate about the philosophy and the narrative of it, and Debbie's looking at things on a wider scale. We're trying to give you guys a mix. We're gonna have guests on, and like Hax said earlier, if you are knowledgeable and you want to talk, or you just want to talk seriously about Westworld, let us know, and we'll have you on. So I hope you guys subscribe. I hope you guys come back and check us out, and I hope you look forward to our videos that we will be coming out with in the next few days, and then I will give it off to my wonderful co-host, HaxDogma.
Yep. Thank you, Justin. Do subscribe to this channel. All the Before the Dust Settles is going to be on this channel. And as we get better with this, as we get better with the OBS and streaming all together, interacting with the community, we're going to be much, much better. So to reinforce that, the early stuff with the beginning of this video with audio and video, all just a learning curve. As for finding my videos, I cover an explained video each week, and I try to do a theory video specifically. Last week was Grace, the week before was What is the Valley Beyond? And yeah, if you enjoy Westworld content, I encourage you to subscribe to my channel as well. And much love, everybody. I think that's it for me.
Oh, the atheist bear. I just got to repeat. May your forevers be blissfully short. Perfectly said. Perfectly. Oh my! I love everything about that. Thank you, atheist bear. I can say that name. I don't know what that says about me, but no. Yeah. Thank you so much. And Logan does rock. God bless him. So thank you guys so much, and we will see you guys soon.
Have a good one, guys.